So welcome back, episode 3, part 2 of refreshing the S52 and OBD1 converting it. We're gonna jump right back in where we left off, but first I have to talk about something that I missed. Shout out to the homie Tyler, aka Tange30, who was watching my video and FaceTimed me to inform me of an error I had here. So if you remember, I installed the thermostat and I said arrow up, right? Well, if you'll notice, I did arrow up, and look at the way the engine's sitting. When this is in the car, the engine is tilted because these sit obviously tilted. I didn't even think of that. I had no idea what he was even talking about. And then I remembered that up in this car is more so like this. So now I'm going to reclock my thermostat with the arrow basically, I don't know, 45 degrees from what is centered now, or what is up now, because when it's in the car, that'll be correct. So thank you, Tyler, for that. I didn't even think about it. All right, so everything's cleaned, ready to go. We're ready to carry on here. So we're using the S52's stock baffling. So we gotta reinstall this. All right, now we're gonna spin, make sure nothing hits. All right, sounds good. One final cleaning. Okay, so now it shouldn't be necessary, but a lot of people have issues. Things change over time. Shouldn't really need RTV with a metal and rubber gasket, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So I'm gonna do the block, I'm gonna do the pan, and then I'm gonna put the gasket in and sandwich it. This way it'll ensure no leaks, just as a little extra precaution. Oil pan is something that you really don't want to have to pull off because you find that it's leaking once it's in the car. Not easy at all, so a little extra safety net here with the RTV never hurt anybody. Time for the pan. Alright, so now we go around and snug them, and then I'm going to wait an hour, and then we will do the final torque. That's what the RTV says to do. Alright, while we're waiting for this to cure, I'm going to do the oil level sensor O-ring. Now, I don't know if I've ever actually seen one of these leak, but I bought the O-ring, so we might as well just do it. Old O-ring in there. Now I gotta clean out the little recess there for the new O-ring. Here's the old one. Labeled as a dipstick tube seal. Interesting, not sure why that happened, but I believe this is correct. Yeah, this looks about right. So I thoroughly cleaned out the recess here for the gasket. Slide the new one in. Oh yeah, it fits perfect. Time to torque these down, 89 inch-pounds. So I got my torque wrench here. Usually I just do these by hand, but I'm gonna try to be, good about this and use a torque wrench. I don't believe there's any pattern to this, so I'm just gonna kind of go around and send it. All right, oil pan is torqued down, ready to go. So now we can flip the motor back up and continue on with everything else. All right, so while we're doing gaskets, let's go ahead and get the valve cover gasket out of the way. And meanwhile, we'll do the spark plugs as well. Cams are intact. Timing chain looks good. The vanos is super clean. Wow. I'd say the vanos has probably been done on this car. That is why I'm not doing the any vanos work on it. You guys may have noticed. The valve cover gasket was totally fine. So be it, whatever. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean the surface, get the old RTV off, clean the valve cover, and then go ahead and reinstall. So now, unlike the oil pan, this is a full rubber seal, so I don't think RTV is necessary. You do it where the vanos meets the head, so those things, and then you do it the half moons. Otherwise, the rest of it's easy, and a valve cover gasket's easy enough in the car, so worst case, it springs a leak, easy enough to do. So, all right, fresh gasket going in. I actually really like these OBD2 valve cover gaskets. They actually slot into the valve cover, which makes it super easy to get everything set up how you want it. You don't have to worry about RTVing the top since it's like in there. Super nice, actually. This is one thing I do very much appreciate about OBD2. I cleaned out the valve cover really nicely, degreased it. There was a lot of gunk. Also, I should note, this entire time I've been doing this with COVID. I got COVID last week. So this video is over the course of like a week and a half. I started this stuff a while ago. Past couple of days have been pretty bad. I'm back on my feet. I'm a little but I want to get this done because I want this video ready for Monday. So I am pushing through despite the fact that I'm like sweating right now and I'm not very comfortable, but I want to get this done. Don't forget the valve or the spark plug tube gaskets. All right, that's ready. So now we're gonna RTV just where the vanos meets the head and then the half moons. I got through the painful process of putting in all the new grommets. Now, time to tighten them down. Old plugs coming out. So this motor is running what I believe is the stock plugs for an S52, the Bosch FGR 8K QE, which is the 4-tip plugs. So I did a little bit of research on what people like to run in S52s, and the consensus seems to be for the greatest performance, maybe, I think, decreased lifespan, but greatest performance is the NGK BKR6Es, which is the single electrode tip. Usually single electrode tips are what you use for performance and high power. I went with these. I think the price difference from these Bosches to these is like crazy. These are super expensive. I think these are even into the double digits, whereas these I think are like, I don't know, $4 to $6 or something like that. Pre-gap 0.032, pretty good for the S52. It's hard to find specs for gap because they're supposed to run the 4-tip ones, but a 0.032 is what people say seems to be pretty good. So NGK is going in. These ones are all uniform. They're a little wet because the motor's been upside down, so I'm guessing the oil's been kind of leaking past the piston rings and into the cylinders. So some of these are a little wet, but these are all pretty gross. They're pretty old. I don't know when these, I feel like they're not original, but they're certainly not new. So spark plugs are well deserved for this motor. Since I'm YouTubing, filming this, I'll do the torque specs. So 18 foot-pounds. Alright, now we're going to do the final torque on the valve cover. So these bottom out, so you literally go until it stops. If you go beyond that, you will strip them. And now on to one of the cooler things about getting this motor ready for the E34. So you guys will know I mentioned earlier in this video I was going to use the M50's cast manifolds because these don't fit with the E34 exhaust. I don't want to do fab work, right? So, broke the studs on all my M50 manifolds, and it came down to having to buy a new set, right? And buying a new set of empty manifolds, which is technically a downgrade, right? Because these are lighter and they flow better, which left me in a bit of a sticky situation until someone reached out to me and offered me these, which may look identical to what's on this, but what you'll note is on this back header, it has been modified and it will now fit with the stock E34 exhaust. So actually the rear, I guess this would be considered the rear M50 or S52 manifold actually bolts right up. It doesn't have to be changed. So these are identical, but this one is different. So he had this one cut up and modified, and pretty much the only difference is the flange is clocked differently. It's just in a different orientation. I'm not sure, maybe this is a tiny bit different, but yeah, some guy had these made for his car and didn't need them anymore, so he gave them to me. Didn't give them to me, I had to buy them, but a pretty cool thing here. So basically what I get to do here is benefit from the better flowing OBD2 manifolds, which will get you a little bit more torque. Nothing major, but still pretty cool. And I'll get to run my full stock E34 exhaust. So no fab work is necessary, and that's pretty cool. What's nice about this S52 is it's a Florida motor, so none of these are too rusty. So these should come off fairly easy. Okay, so unfortunately we are going to get hung up because OBD1 the exhaust manifold gaskets, which I got here, come in pairs, right? And they have this gap here, and then there would be a space between these two. But since these run that little channel for that secondary air stuff, it needs to be a solid gasket right here. You can see the line of where like the exhaust was flowing. Otherwise, the exhaust is going to flow out from the gaskets because of the gaps. So that sucks. I'm going to have to order some of these and get these in. So we're going to have to wait to get these on, unfortunately. But let's not let that hold up, stall the video. So here we have them mocked up. We could use our imagination and pretend that they're good to go. So this is how they'll look. You can see here they mimic the stock M50 manifolds pretty much. So I'm going to order these. Once these come in, then we can finalize this. But I got to get this video ready for tomorrow, so we're just going to move on from here. So pretend this is all set. Now let's go ahead and redress this thing. Let's get the accessories back on, motor mount arms back on. The only difference between the E36 and E34 blocks, it's not a difference. On the E36s, the motor mounts use the back 4 holes, and on the E34 they use the front 4. So the middle 2 are always in use, so that means whichever ones aren't used are going to be a little rusty. So right here we have to go ahead and tap these out, M8 times 1.25. We're going to go ahead and tap these just to clean the threads out because they're all rusty. Then the motor mounts can go on. We got to do that to both sides. So now the motor mount is ready to go on. Alright, E34 motor mounts are on. So now I also had to steal the AC bracket because we will be running AC. And this has to go on before the harmonic balancer because there's these side bolts here that have to go on before the harmonic balancer, or else you can't get to them. All these parts I cleaned up with some degreaser and a power washer the other day when I did the oil pan. Huge pain in the ass and a disgusting mess, but it's well worth it in the end when you have all these nice fresh parts with no residue on them, no nothing. So this motor has no leaks, nothing like that, so it'll be pretty easy to detect any issues later down the road. And in case you guys are wondering, I guess I haven't gone over this really, all this stuff, yes, goes right onto an S52. M50, S52, all these blocks are pretty much identical, so all these E34 components just go right on here. Alternator done. So this is stock E34 power steering pump. S52 didn't come with one. The guy I bought it from kept it. So S52s have the metal oil filter housing, which is the same as the M50s and stuff. So this goes right on. I believe M52s with the plastic oil filter housing cap are different. Power steering done. Now let's go ahead and put back on the harmonic balancer. Brand new bolts, because ones that were on there were a little shoddy. This apparently flew off on the track once, so it only had 5 of the 6 and it didn't look all that great. So brand new hardware. So there is supposed to be a little dowel here to mark this. This one kind of sheared off, but the hole will obviously still line up how it should. Absolutely crucial that that dowel is lined up, because this is what triggers with the crank sensor. So this needs to be accurate. I'm gonna go ahead and Loctite these as well. Why not, right? It doesn't need to be red, high strength thread locker, but it's all I have, so I don't see why I would have to take this off anytime soon. Boom, harmonic balancer's done. All right, we're in the home stretch. So next, let's do some sensors. So we got a brand new crankshaft sensor, OBD1. So conveniently, the S52 has the port for it right here. So I stole the bolt from the M50. Now all we gotta do is throw this bad boy in like that. Fits perfect. Alrighty, and run the wire up through here. There we go. So now it's routed over here, ready to be hooked up when the harness is in. Now it's time for new knock sensors. So the OBD2 ones don't work because it's a 2-into-1. There's no hook like this on the M50 harness. So we had to get 2 OBD1 individual ones. Bosch units. These are expensive as hell. This is honestly one of the most expensive sensors on the car, except for OEM crank and cam. But super annoying, but it is what it is, man, because you need knock sensors, and it's hard to get used ones because they always crack, so it's best to just buy them new. OBD2, so here's OBD1. You don't want to tighten these too hard, you don't want to crack them. That's 1, that's 2. There we go, knock sensor's done. Now it's time to get this vanos solenoid off and replace the cam sensor. So the cam sensor on OBD2 is a male, and on OBD1 it is a female. So, and the receptacle is a bit different. So you do have to swap over to the OBD1 cam sensor. Luckily I had one of these used off one of my old motors. Tested, confirmed, good, so shouldn't have a problem with this one. The best way to check if a cam sensor is good and how they usually fail is if you pull back the harness here, usually the wires in there will crack. You can see the red, green, and black. The insulation will crack or the ends will crack and they'll end up touching. So you can see this is a good sensor because they're all intact there and there's no exposed or broken wires.
A few moments later.
I have never in my life had to battle a vanos solenoid that bad. I borderline destroyed the thing trying to get it out. Borderline destroyed my vanos hose. So you need a longer solenoid because the OBD1 has a longer wire, or you need an extension. So I had to kind of figure out something to do with this either way. I absolutely ruined this, so I'm not going to use it. So I'm going to go grab an OBD1 vanos solenoid, which hopefully is easier to get out than this one. I can't even believe that that fought me that badly. That wasn't very tight. So there's our cam sensor. OBD2, OBD1. The O-ring on the OBD1, actually it's missing the O-ring. So I'm gonna go ahead and steal this really quick so I don't have a leak. Well, I mean, it kind of does have it, but like, it's pretty not effective looking. But otherwise, it's shorter. I mean, well, the sensor itself, same length, but like the wiring behind it. Pop that back in. Oh yeah. OBD1 cam sensor is in. So now I'm gonna rehook up the, well actually I gotta go get my solenoid. Let me go find that really quick. Look at what I just so happen to have sitting in the basement. OBD1 M50 vanos solenoid. So you can see here the difference. Literally the only difference is how long the wiring is. Very goofy, but probably could have made this work, but I kind of mangled it anyway, so that'll be a spare. Now we got this. Solenoids are the exact same, literally even stamped the same. Now we gotta hook back up the oil feed line. Okay, and now the S52 is fully dressed as OBD1 with sensors. Vanos solenoid, cam, crank, knock. Now let's try. I must be missing something here. I don't get this. Okay, I get it now. Since I had the belt routed the wrong way, that's why I thought I needed the idler pulley. So now I pulled the idler pulley out and the belt is tensioned properly without it. So now it all makes sense. Now I get why this car didn't have it before. It had this bolt on it. So I'm not gonna use this, there's no need, no point. It's just an additional thing to possibly make noise. So what I read is when you have a mechanical belt tensioner, no idler pulling necessary. If you have a hydraulic one with the little like piston like this, then you need the idler. So you can see here the belt is still plenty tensioned without it. So I'm not gonna run it. I guess at the end of the day it doesn't really matter, but this car wasn't running it beforehand, so I don't think it needs it now. I believe we are finished. I am exhausted. This really drained me considering that, you know, I'm fighting COVID right now. But I had to get it done. So, I believe this is all we need for this S52 to be ready to go into the E34, aside from the manifold gaskets we have to get, obviously. But those will come and then I'll do those off camera, and the next video, we should be putting this thing in the E34. Hope you guys enjoyed. This may be a long video, I'm not really sure. But a lot involved here, and we now have a fully gasketed, fully refreshed, fully OBD1 converted S52. It almost looks like an M50, doesn't it? Front sump pan, all these OBD1 sensors on it and stuff. Once the manifold's on, it will really look like that. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something from this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.